Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Super happy. We're coming to the end of my week. I get an extra shift. We're planning on a trip. And during the summertime, when they're super busy and they need the extra hands, it works out well for the company that I work for, that I'm willing and able to pick up those shifts, more than willing to pick up those extra shift, because it's going to add more funds. And in adding those more funds to my wonderful, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I've got a trip coming up in September. And, I am in my lessons, I am in those studies. And it does take time, it does take my attention. I get it in every single day. I feel that pull, right? I feel that need out there, and whether that's in my own egoistic kind of ideas that I've got to be out there doing my fair share, right? That part of those gifts that I have is to be able to float in between different ideas, in being able to take lessons in from people that possibly, that I might not even associate myself with in my everyday, day to day. It takes truly all kinds to make the world. And, maybe the world is not quite ready for that idea yet, but maybe that's what I'm here to do, right? I show up fresh like a loaf of bread every day. And, because it is my mission statement that it takes all kinds to make the world, that I have to trust in that. And I do trust in that. It wouldn't be part of my mission statement if I didn't trust in that. Sometimes in the lessons, it's the lessons that we have a hard time digesting, because it's butting heads with things that we've already been learning, those things that have already been compounded into us in our, right, again, everyday, day to day. And it is true, those beliefs that we hold for ourselves so dear, that don't always, and very rarely do they feel true for us. Sometimes it's only of the idea of like that string that's dangling down, and when you're in a desperate, scary, heartbreaking, right, ready to give up kind of situation. And I've done this myself, and I'm going to have to say I am guilty of this myself, that you will hold on to any string, any lifeline that's dropped down to you. When you're at that lowest of all lows, you will grab at anything just to stay afloat. And, there isn't that intent to hurt others in that, but unintentionally we do. And part of what I'm bringing to the table is kind of getting people to realize and get to see for themselves and feel for themselves, maybe possibly a different truth for themselves. I had to digest a lot of content that, that I didn't necessarily look at as to be true, but I moved with it anyway, because where those sources were coming from, I believed in that, right? And, slowly things sink into you, and it helps you move a little bit easier. It helps you to be a little bit more open minded to other people's feelings, ideas, right? Because lots of times, being highly sensitive and being empathic, we have that need to control, not necessarily everybody else, but control our surrounding, what comes in, what throws those wrenches into that engine. But without connecting with others, without listening to new ideas, without realizing that it takes all kinds to make the world, I would never have bumped into, I would say, the majority of the lessons, these lifelines. And that's kind of right. In my regular day to day, there are lifelines. But in this process that I'm moving in, I am grateful that lifelines have been dropped down to me as an offering, not as something as take this, right? Or you're going to fail, but here's some information. Let's see if this works for you. Let's see if this helps you move. And even in that, I have to say there are heartbreaks in that, because that's all information we've never had before, and because they butt with our beliefs, but it also butts with those things that we don't want to believe, right? Those things that have been stalling us in our movement forward. That faith and that trust that we put into others, to have that opened wide and to realize how fragile that, right? Because somebody projected themselves as somebody, right, who had all the answers. And I never do that. Everybody, just judge for yourself. We're all making different movement, and some of these lessons that are for me, they're not going to be for you, but you're going to be the only person who's going to be able to feel it out, whether or not it's some useful information. Just as an example, it's coming into my head now, so I'm going to spew it out, right? When I said about that heartbreaking, and I know we got a word, we got a little bit, you guys. I won't miss picking our 41st word, but this needs to come out because it's coming out, right? But today in my lessons, and we were talking about energies, right? And how we project our energies onto other people, and again in that grasping of hopelessness that we draw off at others too. And I was delving deep and I was looking at different perspectives, and I came across something that was very relatable to me in my childhood. And it was a little heartbreaking. It was super useful in its lesson and in its information and in that idea of, oh my goodness, that's what was going on. Because it did feel odd. It did feel uncomfortable. It was unwelcoming to me. And and it might seem silly to people because it's the tickles, you guys. My parents were big on the tickles. And my mother wasn't a touchy feely kind of person, but she would love to pounce on me, pin me down, and she would tickle me to no end. And it was so frustrating and so painful and so unwarranted and so unwanted, right? That it was like pain for me in tickling. It was also something that my father enjoyed doing to me too in that tickling. And I don't know if it was something that he was just following suit in, or he felt that energy that was being emitted, because good energy, bad energy, it's all energy. It's all a kick. It's all a hit, right? And to think that possibly some of the people that I cared for the most were drawing off of me, right? Without that, I'm not saying permission, but my willingness. And everything should be out of each our own individual willingness. And right, if you were in my situation, if you were in that moment of not being able to get away, and right, and being able to catch your breath and recognizing that something like tickling, which is supposed to be a positive connection, was very something very, very uncomfortable for me. It's a little bit disheartening in that. But I wasn't woken up to any ideas, right, at that time in that age. I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until well into my 50s. And so I endured that. And, I perceived it in my own mind as, right, a fun, because tickling, you're laughing, right? So I tried to put in that energy that this is fun, right? This is somebody trying to connect with me on a personal level, when at the time, well, like I said, I didn't really recognize that. But in recognizing in in that now, so late in the game, I could look back on that and I look at those individuals, and a lot of those individuals I loved more than anything. I would have done any and followed anything, listened to anything, right? I would have served anything. Others, right? I was just trying to avoid, but in that good cop, bad cop kind of idea. And I'm just putting it light. It could be light and dark. It could be, right? It could be heavy and happy, right? It could be miserable and optimistic, whatever those opposites were. They were in alignment in those moments without taking somebody else's, right, life and those other parts of us. Because if that affected me, that definitely, no question, affected those other parts of me. Those are unkindnesses, and there are dues to pay for doing that, because we give energy, right? We don't take energy. And in saying that, I have to say, because of my lack of lessons and because of my lack of understanding about energy, these are lessons that we're picking up along the way, that I myself have been that person, right? In that grasping of whatever's coming down to be that lifeline, right? And if miserableness or resentfulness comes from that, I have to take my fair share of responsibility for igniting that flame, right? For stirring up that energy. And maybe, right, taking something without permission. But I do believe, those lifelines, they were offered, because I'm not somebody, right, doesn't take something that isn't being offered to her. And I truly did feel that these were offerings of kind hearts that meant me well, that were trying to make good connections. So it was just an idea I wanted to shoot out there. If you guys find yourself in a situation when it comes to energies and stuff, and you don't know why you feel wiped out, or why the people around you feel wiped out, right? Look into it, look into them, and look into yourself too, right? And that's what I was doing today. Okay, you guys, today is Monday. Our 51st, or sorry, 41st word is being chosen today. Hopefully, it's an impactful word. I've got one spare, and I'm going to try and save it for a personal choice as my last card. So that means that we got to pick a card that is written here that hasn't been done. I have been, right, hitting on the topic a second time during the course of the past year or so as we've been working on this project. But if you don't know what we're doing, we're picking 54 words, and we're powerful words, inspirational words, words that move us, words that with lots of energy, lots of lessons, and lots of opportunity for something better in the creation of the best human being we possibly can for each one of us. Call it shadow work, but call it light, call it baby steps, right? Because I'm moving with this myself, and it has been a process, and I have gone in deep, and sometimes I am heartbroken, but lots of times I am relieved and energized and hopeful. And in all truth, if you guys have been hanging out with me for a long time, hopefulness has not been a word that has been, right, welcomed into my environment, right? Because there hasn't been a lot of hope. There's been a lot of optimism, only because I'm an optimistic person. This is my life. I'm going to make the best of it as I possibly can, right? But in that believe part, because that's where hope is, right? Well, I'm not even sure if hope is part of the belief, because hope has that feel of, oh my goodness, I give up, right? I give up, and something or someone is going to going to have to swoop in and lift me up and help me out of this situation, right? God helps those who help themselves, right? I love that saying. I'm not a religious person myself, but I do believe, right, there is some kind of master plan that we are all, right, making movement in. And, if you look at it like that, kind of does give you a little bit of hope, doesn't it? Okay, you guys, we've got a few minutes here. It's my first perspective on this new word, our 51st word. Oh, sorry, 41st word. We got, right, 13 more words to do after this one. And then we have a week break that I will pick the last word. And then Cindy's on vacation. And I am going to be gone, 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 except maybe a few posts on my Instagram for 2 weeks, right? That's my reward. But I make sure that reward rewards, right? There's a second and third use for everything. Okay, you guys, here we go. This is our next word. A great word this week, right? Just in like this conversation that we had this week, we have got the word, uh-oh. This is a hard one, you guys, because I think I've done this word before, but I didn't highlight it off if I did. It even has the number 9 on it. We don't have to do it again, you guys. We did it. It's number 9. So here we go. We can't stop on this. We've got to take every week with a new word. So here we go. Spectator. Oh my goodness. This is going to be a good one. Full of lessons, you guys. First thing that comes to my mind, first perspective, I would not be here right now if I hadn't spent the most part of my life as a spectator, as somebody who was taking in lessons, because of my own hypervigilance, trauma based, right? My own hypervigilance in my surroundings, trying to keep it as calm, as safe, not just for me, but anybody who was in my vicinity, right? In all my jobs, being that peacekeeper, all those friendships, being that peacekeeper, always being what did you, a club. I used to do a little bit of club promoting. I used to work in nightclubs and bars, and I really love the promotion part of it, right? And sometimes in this word spectator, you have to come outside of yourself and be creative, and you have to be a participant. But learning everything that you learn, and I don't know why I was bringing up the club promoter stuff, but only in my own creation, right? That creation was taking in and watching other people's lives and being that shoulder for people to cry on or to confide in. And I was such a shiner in my life, right? And it wasn't a role that was dictated onto me. It was only of my, again, we talked about hopefulness, my hopefulness for something a little bit better for myself, a little bit better for my family, a little bit better for our situation, not realizing that I could even dream bigger, right? I didn't have those lessons. I only picked up my surroundings. I got to be very good at reading my surroundings. We talked about that energy, reading the energy within my own family, but I didn't understand the meaning behind it, the lessons behind it. It was kind of, right, this is what you're eating tonight. This is amazing. And it could have been just right, it could have been the cooked carrots. Like when I was a little kid, you couldn't get me to eat carrots, right? Like that you just can't even get it down. But sometimes it's just forced on you and you just don't have a choice. You get used to it, right? And grateful, I never ate. I never caved into that forcefulness. When I came to carrots, and I love carrots now, I really do enjoy. I don't eat enough carrots, but I do love carrots. And there was a time I would only eat raw vegetables, and now I love cooked vegetables. I don't like all vegetables, but I came to loving carrots on my own, and not because somebody forced me to eat it. It was constantly on my plate. It was a cheap vegetable that anybody could grow in their backyard. And it was something that was in the weekly menu in our household, because in our household we were um, poverty stricken, right? Right? My parents did have poverty mindset, but they put themselves in there. They both were hard workers, and they both made a ton of money at what they did, right? But my dad was a compulsive gambler, so right, we quite often found ourselves in those desperate situations. And I didn't have much choice as a child except to go along for that ride. I didn't get any say. Nobody was going to be asking my opinion. It was only as you grow older and as a spectator, you take in the lessons, that you become a little bit braver. Oh, maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll go talk to this person, right? Maybe they want to be my friend. You know, that looks like a fun job. That looks like something that I would be good at, right? Maybe I can get that job. And you step outside of yourself. Now, I'm still not a fan of job interviews. It's very uncomfortable. But I rock those job interviews. Not very often do I not get the job that I apply for, right? Because I can show up. Maybe not show up as myself, right? Because those lessons didn't come from myself. They came out of being pushed into something that was not comfortable, but also it came from myself, because I would drum up that courage and that bravery to say, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can talk to him, right? Maybe she'll help me. And I wasn't great at it, but in stepping my toes in each time, I got better and better and better at it. And it's just like getting that experience when you're taking on a job, right? You start off at the bottom level, and as you become more confident, and as you become more comfortable, and as a spectator watching your peers do their job, and actually being the spectator and recognizing what they're getting right and what they're getting wrong, you can choose for yourself as to what kind of server you want to be. I'm just using a server as an experience because it's a very social position, but it's a very, very physical position at the same time. But your income depended on that. And I learned that really quickly, right? That, your waitress and that good service and that conversation and that connection that you can make to the person that you're taking care of in the moment, that will be beneficial to you. And that all came from being a spectator, right? And then as a spectator, taking in the lessons, drumming up the courage. If I didn't have somebody to push me and say, go do that, if so, I didn't have somebody to push me, and I didn't have a lot of people pushing me that way. I didn't have a lot of people enticing me to come in and join them in that way. So you can imagine it was a lot of drumming up the bravery, drumming up the courage in that failure of sticking my foot in and having my hand slapped, right? That I would drum up the courage again and try again, right? Until I was the master at what I was doing in whatever I wanted to do, right? And so I show up here, fresh like a loaf of bread, and I'm going for a bigger, and it might not even accomplish it in this lifetime, right? But I am a spectator, and I make that space to take in lessons, and I take in those lessons, and whether or not they're painful lessons, eye opening lessons, those ones that whip my head around and go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. But because I feel it to be a truth, because I can backtrack in my own experience and go, oh my goodness, it's so obvious now, but how come I didn't see it then? Right? Now you ask yourself that question, well, then you're automatically going right back in to be a spectator, right? You got to go ask those questions. You got to take in the lessons. I'm pointing at my computer monitor here. You have to have those adventures, and you have to have those wrenches thrown into the engine as you're building up that courage to take that step, and then finding the courage to take the next step. We do things in baby steps here, right? We're doing 54 cards, right? Hasn't been super uncomfortable, right? Even the things that I didn't want to see, that I didn't want to believe. I'm glad that I saw them. I'm glad that in my heart that I can see the truth of them, and I can see the truth of how they affected my life, and on my part even how it affected others' lives. Now, not just others' lives, but I'm saying that because take right, I'm creating the best human being I possibly can, but it also helps me to understand how it affects those other parts of me. Okay, you guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to work. We've got this word spectator. It's our 51st word, you guys. 51st word. I am super excited. This is a good word. Could you guys hear me talk about, right? Spectator and participant all the time, right? And we should be both. And in my opinion, we should be more participant than we are spectator, but in spectator mode, right? It does give us the lessons. And whether or not we use the lessons, that's only going to come from the courage that we can drum up. Okay, you guys, I'm off to work. Last day of the job that puts the roof over my head. We'll see you guys next week. If you want to give me a thumbs up, right? This is heavy content that ain't going to get to a lot of people, right? But if you give it the thumbs up, YouTube will make sure it gets to the right people. And that's what's most important. Have a great day, everybody.